just washing my face, and I'm just looking at myself in the face, and I straight up saw a demon. I took out my piercings. I remember I took it out so quick that it actually cut my lip. It was bleeding. That you feel like you're the only one that's going through that thing. It's a horrible place to be, because I think that's where you become a villain. You can still call, we can talk, and all that kind of stuff, but you can't be doing what we're doing.
Hi, and welcome to the Key Concepts Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about religion. Mikey, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, again, thanks so much for having me on the show, Corey. And you can find me on MissionToGod. That's my social media handle. And I run a faith-based podcast channel where we basically just sit down and talk about really faith and what inspires us and what motivates us, and a lot of the topics that's happening these days.
Who was that mentor or that role model that you looked up to at a young age?
I can tell you the reasons why I pursued it as a young child, I guess a young teenager, is because I was a very, very hurt child, and I was a emotionally traumatized child. I didn't really get much support, from a parent's perspective. Like, I didn't get that from my parents. My father died early, so it was just really my mom. But um, like, I think I was just trying to fit in. I was trying to find love. I was trying to find acceptance. I was really, really. I remember this would come up in my head a lot. Um, how can I be like the other kids?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I see them getting love from their parents. I see them getting attention and stuff like that, which is something that I wasn't used to, and I just like I wanted to have that kind of a relationship, but I didn't know how. So the one thing that I observed was that I saw them going to church, and when we immigrated here, like, we didn't know the language, and most of the neighboring community was just all Armenians. So, kind of like watching them go whatever they were doing, we just kind of like followed along.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like really intentional. I wasn't like intentionally, I guess what I mean by that is like with full understanding of what like God is and what religion is, and like pursuing it. I think it was just more like, okay, they're going there, I'm gonna go with them. And eventually, just it became like a repetitive kind of thing where it was just like, I think it was like, um oh, you know what? Actually, it was not just once or twice. I think it was like every day. I think there
Wow.
was a prayer service every day at 7 o'clock. So all this to say is that, like, I didn't really have a deep fundamental understanding of religion, of God, and I certainly didn't get it from my parents, and I didn't get it really from my cousins. It was just, I think, more. This is where I probably like say for the right reasons. I went there because I was just hurt. Like, I didn't understand the world, and I had already been through so much trauma and pain that I didn't understand what was happening. Why did those things happen? In fact, I didn't even understand why we were in America. Like, it was such a
Mm-hmm.
I was a young kid, so I didn't understand these things, and so it's just a bunch of questions that I didn't understand. I was just trying to fit in. I was just trying to figure things out. But so that was around like 10 or
Around
so.
10. So it kind of sounded like it was more cultural, and it definitely is part of the
Yeah.
culture. But once you started going to church or to the community prayers or whatever, did anyone of your friends treat you differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think that it impacted me as much as it probably impacted maybe my mom's image. Um, oh, hey, your son is going to prayer service, or he's going to church. That's a good thing. And so, like, it's kind of good for her image, while I'm, like 9 or 10, and I don't understand this. I'm not really doing this because, oh, I understand, like, this is going to be good for my image, or like, I don't understand this stuff. I'm just kind of doing it, really just to fit in.
Did you change in any way once you started going to church?
Yeah. So I would say that I went to church, but I didn't see God. So
Gotcha.
I kind of like, I'll explain that a little bit more deeper. So I went to church because, again, it was like the thing to do. It was just kind of like where my friends were going. And Armenians are a close knit community. So it's just kind of like where everybody went. That's where we saw each other, right? After church, especially, we say hi, how you doing, and kind of stuff. And so it was to me in my head, my experience, it was just like a gathering.
You're kind of raised this way because the community is kind of doing this as a social gathering and it's a thing to do. You go hang out, you see some friends, you listen to some lectures, but then at some point in time, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing what you're
Yeah.
doing?
I don't remember a time where I asked myself, do I really believe this? That never occurred. So it wasn't church that made me seek God. It wasn't church that made me think about whether God is real and those kinds of things. It was my pains. That's what happened. So it was because what I noticed, especially when I look back now in hindsight, what I noticed was I was going into these things that I was trying to use to heal, but they were just temporary and they didn't heal me. And I was just getting more angrier. So the drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and all this stuff, I was just trying different things. Like if a person in school, in high school, would be like, "Hey, you want to go ditch? You want to do this?" Like, yeah, sure. I didn't have a care for school. I didn't have a care for church. I didn't have care for really like respecting someone. Like I didn't have any care for that. It was just I was just so emotionally traumatized and so hurt that one, I I wanted to hide it. I didn't want other people to know because there's some kind of shame attached to that. Like I didn't understand because when you see a group of friends that are not doing that, you don't want to be the outcast. You don't want to be like
Right.
the one who is kind of like weird and emotionally traumatized. So I hid it. And it was just like normal, just smile, whatever. But I wasn't. I was super, super angry. And I was just, give me an opportunity to get into a fight, whatever. And so it had nothing to do really with church. And now that I look back in hindsight, the way that I see that is like, man, I think I became a true believer um, in the most realist way. Like if you think about a relationship between especially like a husband and wife, like why did you guys get married? Because someone told you to, or it was from you, like within you. It had something to do with you. And so my experiences and my pains and the questions in my mind about myself made me like get my mind into a place where I really wanted to like heal. I wanted to figure out because you see like friends growing up and they're achieving things and doing things and it's like what's going to happen to me? Because you're a kid, you don't think about that stuff about the future, but you get older and that gets scary. It's like what am I going to do? Like I have to figure this out. So, but unfortunately the sort of like, the surroundings that I had created and the people that I had brought into my life were supplying these temporary, reliefs. And at that point, it was just hard to, because they were my friends. So it's like, man, what do I do? I just like stop hanging around with them. I stopped talking to them. So as I got older and some maturity hit about right thing and the wrong thing, it just, now that I know like this game is happening in my head, right and wrong, the wrong is winning. But now for the first time, I'm starting to have this like dialogue, like, okay, I don't want to do that, but then I'm doing it. So it's like confusing. And so that led me to like, okay, now that my mom is trying to give me my say, stop doing that, stop hanging around with those type of people. Like, sure, I'm not obeying her, but I'm listening to her. I'm just not obeying her. And it came to the point where I was like, man, how do I stop though? Okay, now that I want to stop, like, how do I stop? Because I can't stop. Like, I really, really can't stop. This is like, I go a couple of hours without using something, and I'm just flustered. I'm angry, and so I think that's where God, I think that's what he saw. I think that he saw that yearning. I think that he saw that calling. Okay, he wants me. He just doesn't know how to call for me. He doesn't know who I am. He wants salvation. He wants to be cured. He wants to be healed. He doesn't want to be this person anymore. He just doesn't know how. So rather than through the church, it was like this, the most authentic and personal connection. Um, I can get a little bit into the story, but if you have other questions, but I remember I was drugged up. I was out with some friends. I was drugged up. I came home probably like 2, 3 in the morning. I had long hair. I had piercings, and I got home and I went into my room, and there was a Bible on it. It was dark. When I went in, my cousin had left a Bible on my table, and the Bible fell, and I picked it up, and immediately in my head I was just thinking, man, you're so unholy, dude. Like, you drugged up. Don't touch a Bible. Like, that I remember that voice in my head, like, man, that's a holy thing. Don't, because all the years, whether how much I respected the people and stuff, something in my head still said, this is a Bible, right? And so
Respect it.
I just, it's like, okay, man, don't. So anyways, I felt bad because it fell on
Mhm.
the floor, and I grabbed it and I put it back on a desk. And I remember for some reason that incident, that happening just kind of like brought up some like unwanted feelings. Just, it was just like depression and pain and like just negative thoughts. It was just negative. And it was really just negative in the sense like, you're not a good person. You suck. You, like, all this kind of self-criticism. And I just went into the bathroom. I had a bathroom in my room, and had the medicine cabinet, and I had a mirror, and just washing my face, and I'm just looking at myself in the face, and I straight up saw a demon. I saw a straight demon. It was the most like, it was just like the Joker from Batman with this huge grin, or better yet, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas. It was just like this very, very nasty, because I remember I was not laughing, I was not happy, I wasn't smiling. And that moment when I saw that, it just terrified me. And now, mind you, like, I've at this point had been doing drugs for probably like 7 years, and I had never experienced anything like that. I Nothing supernatural. I've had friends who said, "Man, I did too much of this. I did too much of that. I started seeing things. I was hallucinating. I did shrooms and all this stuff." I was like, "Man, I've never experienced that." And I would actually say, "Man, like, I'm so good at doing drugs. So like, I never see these kinds of things. I'm good. I can take any drug." And so when that happened and I saw that image in the mirror, I remember touching my mouth to see if I'm actually smiling. And I'm looking at my mirror, I can see like this just evil, just like this evil demonic grin. And I'm not smiling. So, I'm high, I'm drunk. Um, and I don't know why this happened. I really don't know. I just got on the ground and started crying. I got on my knees and I'm crying. Now, it's funny because I was a metalhead, so I like even when my uncle moved into our house after he came when he got here from Armenia, he needed a place to stay, so he stayed at our house, and he would every night get annoyed because I would play metal music. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't sleep. So like, man, I can't sleep. I can't sleep. Can you please lower it? And I would lower it down a little bit, man, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and but he would never be enough. He's like, I can still hear it. So that was like a thing, like, my mom would be like, "Hey, keep it low, keep it down," and stuff. And here I am, just crying, sobbing, and nobody's coming to my room and say, "Hey, what's going on?" It was like closed off. I was like in this closed off kind of room where I can just release and be just let all this out. Whatever that was happening at that moment, that salvation moment, I couldn't be bothered. You had to be, and I truly believe this because it's so weird. Of all those years, I would just like constantly, almost every night, "Hey, keep it low." Like, and here I am, I'm crying, and nobody like can hear this. So that night, after I cried for like a good 30 minutes, I was just talking, man. I was just like crying and talking. I so weird. I took out my piercings. I remember I took it out so quick that it actually cut my lip. It was bleeding. So I took both my piercings out. I had snake bites, so I took them out. I had posters, bands, and everything, like, inappropriate ones as well. Uh, Grabbed everything off the wall. This is all happening at like 3 o'clock at night, and I took everything off the wall. I'm ripping everything out, bro. I don't know what's happening. Those are like really valuable stuff. They all had autographs and stuff like that. So I took everything, and I went to the backyard, put it in a grill, and torched it. Like, I've never had heard anybody that had done this. I'm not following orders. Like, I'm not following some kind of a memory or like, oh, someone did this, I'm just gonna do this. I'm just naturally just doing it out of instinct. And it's going like a voice in my head. Just all of a sudden, I can identify what was wrong and evil. So it's like now I'm just like I want to get off of take it off. So burned everything. Um, Cut my hair, and I wake up and my mom sees me, my uncle sees me, my sister sees me, and they are just they what's going on? Like, what is going on? Like, they see a bald guy now with no piercings, nothing on the walls. Just they're just kind of like dumbfounded, like what happened? Like, what's going on? And I never really really like told them or anything like that. I just kind of kept to myself. I didn't kind of like closed off. I've always been like that. I felt like I didn't need to give an explanation to anybody, whatever. This
Right.
is whatever is happening to me. This is very personal. So, uh, but not to drag this on any longer. It was a very the reason I wanted to tell you that story is because to answer the question, like, okay, at what point did you start seeking God? I really didn't. He sought me out. Like, the only thing that I could give credit to myself is I wanted to stop. I started to feel like, okay, like I'm getting older. I'm gonna be 20 next month or something like that. I I don't want to live like this anymore.
Very powerful testimony, man, from tearing down the posters to turning away from the drugs and probably losing a lot of friends in the
Yeah,
process at
that
the same
was
time. So it's
well, for sure. For sure. Thanks be to God for the strength that He gave me to do these things, because that was really, 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 really hard. The friends part, that's just really, really hard. Um, because it's a relationship. It's not just a word. Oh, friends. No, it's a relationship, and you're mingled with them. It's kind of like the fibers of your heart is connected with their fibers of their heart. You eat with them, you talk with them, you share and open with them. So you do stuff. It's just like it's hard to separate that kind of
mhm.
relationship. So, but it was incredible, really. And there's so many parts to that story too. It's really, really incredible. All of it, the whole entire thing was just like a straight miracle. Everything that I thought couldn't be done happened. I thought it was like impossible. There's no way. How am I gonna look my friend in the eye and say, "Hey, I'm gonna take time off," and to myself, because the first is like, "What did I do? Like, why?" And it's like, okay, how do I explain? It's not really about them. It's just something I'm going through. So all these worries, anxieties, all these questions, like, how is this gonna happen? Like, how am I gonna do this? It just happened. In fact, a few of my friends had told me themselves before I did, "You're going in the right direction. Stay on that direction. We're friends. You can still call, we can talk and all that kind of stuff, but you can't be doing what we're doing." And I remember crying. I heard that from one of my friends, and I remember I was like, are you talking through them? Like, what's happening right now? But God made it happen. Like, it just everything just kind of happened, fell into place. It was like, yeah, really, I wasn't really doing anything.
You kind of just went through your early official journey with God. And so what kind of advice would you give a new believer that is going through their
The chapter that you're in right now is not the final chapter. And the story that you're part of is much, much bigger than you'd imagine. And the role that you play in that story is critical. So you're important. You're very, very important to the story. The story of God and his creation, and more intimately, his family. So what I went through was just years of pain, but not understanding the reasons behind those pains. So if you're going through that, if you can take something away from this story, this conversation, is that I found out things in my 20s. So this is not the end all. Um, you are going to look back one day and you're going to see a montage of images and memories. It's probably going to be in your private, maybe in a car or somewhere like this. It's going to be very, very intimate, private moment. And you are going to see this montage in your mind of all the times that you've been hurt. You're going to see an image of that moment happening, and you're going to see God there. And I just didn't know. I didn't know that God was there when I was being abused. He was there. Please don't give up, because how do you know that your story and the pain that you're going through right now is going to save someone's life?
Yeah.
Because I have gone through some specific things, specific traumas that I have used during like missionary work, outreach work. I have shared these stories, these personal stories, with one-on-one with someone who's literally going through that very same thing. And like, I'm not going to toot my own horn or anything like that, but like that, I was used in that moment. And that person, because the one of the worst feelings that you can feel is loneliness. So if you're going through something that you feel like you're the only one that's going through that thing, it's a horrible place to be. Because I think that's where you become a villain. Because that's when you start to look at the world and say, like, screw the world. The world is fine. Everybody's happy except me. But the moment that you realize you're not the only one, all of a sudden, like, there's purpose. And now there's a reason to not give up. Like, okay, yes. It's kind of like the story of Christ. He goes through the cross. He goes through the pain. He goes through all of this. Why? For me and you.
When it comes to those pains and being able to kind of give back, you're kind of giving the cheat codes on how you overcame it,
Mm-hmm.
and you're giving that to someone else that's going through something similar, so they're able to overcome it a lot
Right.
quicker in a shorter amount of time. And so you're definitely able to use the recovery of those pains and apply it, to someone else, and well, at least shared the roadmap with them, and then they can take it from there and see how they want to apply that to their own life. What are the good parts about church? And then we'll go to what are the bad parts about church.
Yeah, I mean, church, as the Bible describes, there's good ones and the bad ones, right? I think this is why I'm such an advocate for people reading the Bible, because it's not like what you might be thinking, like this boring, exhausting book of stories that I can't relate to or what. No, it's the complete opposite. So when you read about Paul, he's the uh, preacher for the Gentiles. And one of the things that you see him go through is like as he sets up these churches, as he's going throughout, much of Rome and the world, is that you find some of the churches betray him. He says, "How I have worked for you, how I have suffered for you. I've traveled. I've done like all these things that he's done." And he says, "And now some person has come into the church, and you believe them, and like, what happened?" So he talks about this betrayal. So the reason I just wanted to bring that up is because there you could read it so you can see even an apostle is going through good churches and bad churches. And what are churches? It's people, right?
Yeah,
So
they're
it's
just
like people. There are good
congregation
people and
people.
there's bad people. That's you know. But I think I think your question is really underlining the sort of like the leadership of church, like as far as church goes. Because again, we can say there's good people and there's bad people, right? Even in some of the churches that Christ Himself is talking about in the book of Revelations, in the end of days, He goes, "I see the few of you in that wicked church, that the wicked prostitute is the word that He uses, that's sitting at the leadership role." But He says, "I see the few of you. Keep praying, be holy as you've been." So I've told many people, "Hey,
Yeah.
I get you might be in a rough church, but maybe you were called to be a warrior to pray for those people in that church. You're there for that reason." So, yeah, m- you know, as an adult now, when I've seen so many different churches and I've read and I've done, all this research, yeah, I could easily say, "Man, I wish I was part of that church over there, or I was part of that church over there. Man, there's so much better than the one I was attending." But oh man, that's just almost so irrelevant. That's just like you don't get to pick your battles really. Like it's just you're there, and so you just have to be a warrior, and and do what you truly believe in your heart God is calling you to do. Don't look at, and I will just say this, I've gone through this. I just got caught up looking at a particular person, and I started looking up to that person and got hurt by that person. And so that happens too. So what I've learned is church is just really, man, it's just people, and don't focus on their credentials so much. Don't focus on how righteous they are or this or that. Just live again, just do you. Make sure you're working on yourself. And if you do observe someone doing something inappropriate or something that a Christian shouldn't be doing or whatever, some room for criticism, pray for that person. Pray for that person for healing, but also pray for that person, pray for God to give you a word of wisdom that you can pass on. Not a judgment, just like a word of wisdom. And that'll have a huge effect, just like the prophet Nathan was given wisdom, a proverb, and he goes and shares it. He goes, "There was a man, a poor man and a rich man. The poor man had one sheep, and a rich man had a bunch of sheep. But one day, the rich man takes that one sheep from the poor guy. And then he goes, what should we do with this man, with the rich man?" And then King David says, "Have him killed. He needs to be judged. He's wrong. That's awful. How could he do such a thing? He has all the sheep and he's taking the..." And then Nathan looks at him and says, "You're that man." It's just such an incredible, profound moment in the Bible. That story is like, it's incredible. Like he's like, pray for that. Pray for God to give you a proverb or something like in a way where it'll sink in without judgment. David judged himself. That's the best way. It's like it's better than someone else judging you. It's like you figure, "Oh my God, that's me, man. That's what I've been doing." Oh, because that's how you heal. That's how you change. But when someone else sort of like gives you the answer, it's almost like it just doesn't sink in as well.
Yeah. It's like,
Right?
who are you to judge me? Or
Yeah.
who are you to tell me what's right and what's wrong? And so definitely through self-reflection, you'll have the closest thing through change because you own the change, right? It's not forced upon you.
Right.
You intrinsically
You own
want to
that.
change.
There you go.
And so,
You own it.
yeah, and you'll then be able to implement it. So,
So good
yeah,
churches, bad
there's
churches, it's always been around. It's nothing new. It's human beings. It is what it is.
how do you navigate that conversation with someone from a different faith?
Oh, as openly and comfortably as possible. I find it always a pleasure. I remember a time where I had some Mormons come over to my door, and yeah, I walked out, and I had like a little patio, and I would just sat there, and it's like, go ahead, man, sell me. Go ahead and just do your best. And and they went on and on and on. I was like, okay, my turn. And then and what I did, and this, if you're listening to this, the one advice that I would give you, and this is gonna like just out of the ballpark, speak from your own life. I remember I told this guy, there's two guys, Mormons, and I told them the miracles that had happened in my life. I'm talking about actual, tangible moments. Car accident, fell from the roof on my head, like just things all throughout my life. The montage I was talking about earlier. And I start speaking from my own personal life.
Your testimony.
And I'm saying to this guy,
Yeah.
I have seen Christ. I have tasted his goodness, as Paul says. How can you convert me? Like, there's nothing that you can do. What are you going to do? You're going to say, I can create fire in the air, do some magic or some, doesn't matter. It's kind of like Pharaoh's prophets throwing the rod on the ground, and then Moses tells Aaron to throw the rod on the ground, and it turns into a snake and it eats the other ones. What are you going to tell me that I can't think of a bigger miracle than what you're going to tell me? Like, it just, you know what I mean? So I think if you have a personal walk, a real authentic Christian life, your life is going to be full of miracles, experiences, scenarios where that's going to prep you, and it's going to be ingrained in your mind. So in that moment, it's going to be this perfect timing. It's going to be this perfect moment where you're going to tell them, and that person is going to be like, you sold me, man. I came here, but you sold me. I've actually had encounters like that. So my simple, maybe not sound so simple, but honestly, it's just so simple in my head. Just be real.
Yeah, just give your testimony, give an account. Yeah.
I've actually talked to people that said, man, we had this guy and he has his testimony. You should come to our church and listen to his testimony and this and that. I'm like, but you're here right now in front of my face. What's your testimony? What is your testimony? Because like, if you actually like just sit there and just like pay attention, you start to notice it's never first-hand stories. It's always a second or third or fourth. It's been passed down. If you are real, then you're going to give your testimony, your story,
Sure.
in a way that's going to impact the person standing there and listening to you is so different. Not to mention when they do push back, it's your story and you can give an account for it.
Yeah. I think it's better to give your testimony instead of try to fight with biblical verses and everything. There's definitely a time for that, but not just on a regular encounter or just hanging out or doing whatever. And at the end of the day, I think it's always best to agree to disagree. Anything you want to bring up to wrap it up? Any last things you want to mention? At least your social media handles one more time.
Yeah, MissionToGod. Find me on Twitter, Rumble, Instagram, and what's the other one that I'm forgetting? YouTube.
Yeah.
So yeah, check out the videos. We'll hopefully get some more videos out there.
Well, with that, we'll close. So thank you for joining us on this episode of the Key Concepts Podcast. Today we talked about religion, spirituality. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.